Listen carefully to what you are about to hear, for it concerns the very foundation upon which human affairs rest. Across the centuries, mankind has been bewitched by the power of language, mesmerized by the eloquence of speeches, seduced by the melody of promises, captivated by the architecture of carefully constructed arguments. Yet beneath this veneer of verbal mastery lies a truth as old as power itself. The world does not move by what is said, but by what is done. Consider the prince who stands before his people with words of gold, painting futures of prosperity and glory. His rhetoric flows like honey, each phrase measured and perfect. The crowd hangs upon his lips, believing that his utterances are the blueprints of reality. But when winter comes and bellies remain empty, when the promised protection fails to materialize, when his words prove hollow against the winter wind, then, and only then, does the deceived multitude understand the chasm between declaration and delivery. This is no accident of human nature. This is its deepest law. The human mind is constructed in such a way that it cannot help but believe what it sees with its own eyes more readily than what it hears with its own ears. Words are ethereal things. They vanish as soon as they are spoken, leaving only impressions and hopes in their wake. Actions, by contrast, possess weight and substance. They exist in the material world. They create consequences that cannot be denied or reinterpreted by the clever manipulation of language. When you hand a coin to the poor, that is real. When you raise your sword to defend your city, that is undeniable. When you break your oath, the wound runs deeper than any weapon forged by human hands. The psychology that governs this preference for actions over words is not born of stupidity or simplicity among the people. Rather, it emerges from a profound wisdom embedded in human experience. Your ancestors learned, through countless trials and sorrows, that talk without action is the currency of deceivers. A man who merely speaks of courage but flees from battle reveals his true nature through his absence. A woman who promises loyalty yet abandons her companions in adversity shows her real character through her feet, not her mouth. This observation cuts to the heart of how trust is constructed and how it crumbles. Trust, you see, is not built upon words alone, no matter how beautifully arranged. Trust is born when what is promised is delivered, when commitments become visible in the world, when the chasm between claim and deed narrows to nothing. The prince who wishes to endure must understand this principle with absolute clarity, for upon this foundation rests the very architecture of his power. Now probe deeper into the machinery of the human soul to understand precisely why actions wield such dominion over words. The mind of man is not a blank slate upon which words inscribe themselves with permanent clarity. Rather, it is a chamber of mirrors, a place where claims are constantly filtered through skepticism, self-interest, and the accumulated wisdom of experience. When someone speaks to you, you do not merely receive their words, you interpret them, you question them, and you measure them against what you know of human nature and the speaker's motives. What are their incentives? You ask yourself, what do they gain by saying these things? What hidden interest lurks behind this declaration? The mind that hears words is always suspect, always defensive, always comparing the statement against the speaker's past behavior. But when you witness an action, a genuine deed performed in the world, your defenses become somewhat less rigid. An action reveals what the actor truly values without the interference of carefully chosen language. Think of the commander who tells his soldiers that he values their lives above all else. These words might sound noble. They might inspire temporary enthusiasm. But when that commander is observed leading his men into unnecessary peril, reserving comfortable quarters for himself while his soldiers suffer, or retreating when danger appears, then the soldiers know his true mind. His actions have spoken a verdict that no subsequent speech can overturn. He values his own safety, not theirs. His words were merely tools, sophisticated instruments of manipulation, while his actions revealed the naked truth. This is the fundamental asymmetry that Machiavelli observed across all of human affairs. Words can be manufactured with ease, refined through practice, honed to perfection through repetition. Any man with sufficient cleverness can string together beautiful phrases. But actions demand alignment with genuine intention. To act consistently over time, you must either truly believe what you are doing, or you must possess such perfect discipline that you can simulate belief flawlessly. The latter is rare indeed. Consider further the metaphor of the mask and the face. A man might wear a mask of virtue, might speak honeyed words and present a facade of kindness. But if his actions repeatedly show cruelty, indifference, or betrayal, then observers cease to believe the mask. They begin to suspect it covers something rotten. The moment an action contradicts a word, that word loses its power, sometimes permanently. Once broken, trust becomes nearly impossible to restore because the observer now knows that words can diverge from reality. They have witnessed this contradiction with their own senses. The psychology here operates through what might be called credibility erosion. Each time a person promises one thing and does another, they deplete their reservoir of believability. Yet when actions align with words, when what is promised is delivered, when commitments are honored, when deeds match declarations, the opposite occurs. Credibility accumulates. The person becomes increasingly believed, not because each individual statement has become more eloquent, but because the pattern of their actions proves their words reliable. Moreover, actions possess a peculiar power that words cannot match. They cannot be easily denied or reinterpreted. A word spoken can be claimed to have been misunderstood. A promise made can be explained away as conditional or circumstantial. But an action exists in the world as a fact, a thing that happened. It becomes part of the historical record. When you have given money to your supporters, that gift remains given. When you have failed to support them in crisis, that abandonment has occurred and cannot be unmade through subsequent rhetoric. The psychology of the observer then becomes simply the psychology of pattern recognition. The mind registers what has been done and draws conclusions accordingly. There exists within the human heart a capacity for intuiting authenticity that no amount of verbal sophistication can fully deceive. This capacity operates largely beneath the level of conscious awareness. A person may not be able to articulate precisely why they trust one leader over another, or why they believe one merchant's promises while dismissing another's, but their intuition often proves more reliable than logical analysis. This intuition is honed through observation of actions. What is authenticity? Authenticity is but the alignment between what a person claims to be and what their consistent actions reveal them to be. When actions repeatedly contradict words, authenticity vanishes. When actions consistently align with words, authenticity flourishes. And the human mind, operating through centuries of evolved wisdom, recognizes authenticity through deeds far more reliably than through declarations. This principle becomes especially acute when examining matters of consequence. In trivial affairs, words might suffice. A man might speak eloquently about his appreciation for fine wine, and words alone might satisfy his companion in casual conversation. But in matters of genuine importance, in questions of loyalty, courage, prudence, and strength, the observer demands proof. They demand to see actions that demonstrate these qualities. A prince claiming to be strong must demonstrate strength through decisive action. A friend claiming loyalty must prove it through deeds undertaken at personal cost. A leader claiming wisdom must evidence it through sound judgments visible in their decisions and their consequences. The reason is simple and profound. Actions have stakes attached to them. When you speak a word, you risk only your credibility if the word proves false. But when you undertake an action aligned with that word, you risk resources, time, reputation, and sometimes even your safety. Actions reveal not merely your beliefs, but your willingness to stand behind those beliefs with sacrifice. This willingness is what transforms mere words into something powerful and believable. The merchant who claims to offer fair dealing in business might employ honeyed language and written contracts filled with promises. But the customer's true assessment of that merchant's character comes from repeated transactions. Did the product arrive as promised? Was the quality what was claimed? Were disputes resolved fairly? These actions, accumulated over time, form the basis for trust far more solid than any verbal assurance could provide. A single broken promise in action can outweigh 100 promises kept through mere speech. This psychology extends into the realm of power itself. A ruler who speaks of strength but acts with hesitation loses authority. A ruler who speaks little but acts with decisive force gains it, even if his actions are feared rather than loved. The reason lies in this fundamental truth. People respond more authentically to what they see being done than to what they hear being said. The eye is the great truth teller. The ear can be deceived. In all matters, where genuine power and authentic influence matter, actions must take precedence. Now turn your attention to how this principle operates across the actual landscape of human affairs. In the real circumstances where power is contested, trust is fragile, and survival depends upon seeing through deception. In the realm of relationships between princes and their subjects, this truth becomes starkly visible. A prince might declare his devotion to the welfare of his people through brilliant oration. He might commission poets to sing of his magnanimity and employ philosophers to write treatises on his virtue. Yet if that same prince hoards resources while his people suffer, if he conscripts their sons into endless wars, if he imposes crushing taxes while his own treasury grows fat, then all the eloquent words in the world cannot restore the bond between ruler and ruled. The people understand through their bellies and through their losses. They understand through empty harvests and sons who do not return. These are the truths that penetrate deepest into human consciousness. Consequently, the prince who seeks lasting power must understand that his words are merely hollow decorations unless they are backed by consistent action that serves his people's genuine interests, or at minimum, avoids catastrophic betrayal of their trust. Consider the contrast between the prince who makes magnificent promises about justice and the prince who simply delivers it. The first prince consumes political capital with his eloquence. The more he speaks of justice while practicing its opposite, the more his words accumulate as evidence against him. The second prince, through quietly and consistently punishing wrongdoing and rewarding virtue, builds a reputation through deeds that needs no articulation. His justice is visible. It is inescapable. It teaches lessons to all who observe. This applies equally to matters of military leadership. A commander who speaks courageously to his troops, but who hangs back from danger reveals his true nature through his distance from the fight. His soldiers notice. They see where their leader stands when arrows fly. This single action, or rather this single absence of action, communicates more about his character than any speech honoring their bravery. But the commander who charges into danger alongside his men, who shares their hardship and their peril, generates loyalty that no amount of verbal inspiration could produce. His presence in the battle is the message. His willingness to risk his life alongside his soldiers speaks volumes. The fundamental reason for this hierarchy of credibility, whereby actions dominate words, lies in something most people sense but few articulate clearly. Words can be manufactured. Words can be refined. Words can be rehearsed and perfected and deployed strategically. But actions, true actions undertaken with real resources and real risk, reveal something irreducible about a person's genuine priorities and beliefs. To consistently align your actions with noble words demands either that you genuinely believe those words, or that you possess such extraordinary discipline and resources that you can afford the cost of maintaining false appearances indefinitely. Most people cannot sustain such pretense. Their true nature eventually emerges through their deeds. Therefore, in all practical matters where power and influence matter, the formula becomes clear. Do what you claim to believe in. Allow your actions to substantiate your words. And understand that if you fail at this alignment, if words and deeds diverge, the observer will believe the deeds, not the words. They will trust the evidence of their eyes over the music of your voice. But now contemplate something even more subtle and profound about this principle. When observers judge you based on your actions rather than your words, they are not merely checking whether you have kept a specific promise. They are drawing inferences about who you fundamentally are. Your actions serve as a mirror held up to your soul, and others read that mirror constantly, whether or not you are aware. This is why consistency of action matters so profoundly. A single generous act might be performed by accident or calculation, but generous acts repeated across time and circumstance reveal genuine character. Similarly, a single betrayal might be explained as momentary weakness, but repeated betrayals become a pattern, and a pattern reveals true nature. The human mind operates through these patterns. It collects data points through observation and draws conclusions. The data points that matter most are actions, because they are the hardest to fake. There is a kind of honesty in action that words cannot replicate. When you act, you commit yourself to the material world. Your choices create consequences that persist whether you wish them to or not. A promise spoken can be forgotten or denied. An action performed becomes history. This is why people trust actions more than words, and why the wise prince trusts his own observations of what others do rather than what others claim. Consider further the matter of fear and respect. A ruler might speak eloquently about the need for the people to love him, about the virtues of affection between prince and subject. But if that same ruler repeatedly reveals through his actions that he cares nothing for their welfare, that he views them as mere instruments of his power, then no eloquence can generate authentic love. However, a ruler who demonstrates through steady action that he protects his people, that he punishes injustice, that he keeps his word, such a ruler generates something possibly more durable than love, respect. And respect, rooted in observable evidence of reliability and strength, outlasts affection rooted in pretty words. The psychology that underlies this truth extends to the question of virtue itself. Many people speak of virtue, of courage, justice, prudence, and temperance. Yet virtue is not a state of mind to be proclaimed. Virtue is a habit of action. You become courageous by performing courageous acts. You become honest by repeatedly choosing honesty when dishonesty would profit you. You become temperate by consistently restraining appetite when indulgence beckons. Words about virtue are merely words. The possession of virtue is demonstrated through action, and observers recognize this truth, whether or not they have reflected upon it philosophically. This brings us to one of the most misunderstood aspects of human nature, the role of intention. A person might intend well, they might genuinely wish to be kind and honorable, yet still be revealed through their actions to lack these qualities. This happens because good intentions are not sufficient. The test of character is not what you meant to do, but what you actually did. The observer sees outcomes, sees patterns, and judges accordingly. A road paved with good intentions matters far less than the actual destination you arrive at through your deeds. Let us now draw together the strands of this teaching into something coherent and actionable for those who possess eyes to see. The principle that actions speak louder than words is not merely an observation about how people judge one another. It is also a profound truth about the structure of reality itself. In the material world, what matters is what happens, not what is said about what happens. You can speak eloquently about revolution, but revolution exists only when people rise up and overturn the established order. You can declare love forever, but love is demonstrated through sacrifice and presence across years. Therefore, the wise among you will conduct your lives with full awareness of this truth. You will understand that your reputation, the substance of your power and influence, is built not through words but through deeds. When you make a commitment, you should make it silently through action rather than loudly through announcement. The merchants, the generals, the statesmen, and the leaders who endure across generations are those who let their actions speak first, and their words follow only as necessary explanation. This does not mean that words are unimportant. Rather, it means they are secondary. Words matter most when they describe or explain actions that have already been undertaken or will shortly be undertaken. Words that float free from any connection to action become mere noise, but words that accompanied with genuinely meaningful action gain power from that action. They become credible because they can be tested against observable reality. For those seeking to wield power, whether over a state or over a household, over a business or over a domain of influence, this understanding becomes essential. Do not waste your energies on elaborate speeches if your actions contradict them. Do not expect people to believe your promises if your history shows you to be unreliable. Build your power through consistent action. Prove your reliability through repeated honoring of commitments. Demonstrate your wisdom through sound decisions that produce good outcomes. Show your strength through decisive action taken at the moment when it is needed most. The people will believe what they see with their own eyes. They will trust what they have repeatedly experienced. They will doubt what they have seen contradicted by action. This is not cynicism about human nature. It is rather a realistic understanding of how human judgment actually works. The wise observer recognizes this reality and aligns themselves with it rather than struggling against it. Furthermore, understand that this principle operates not only in how others judge you, but in how you should judge others. Be skeptical of eloquence unaccompanied by demonstrated action. Be wary of promises without a track record of fulfillment. Scrutinize the gap between what people claim to be and what their actions reveal them to be. This clarity will protect you from deceivers and help you identify those upon whom you can genuinely rely. The person whose actions align with their words across time and circumstance, that person is trustworthy. The person whose words are beautiful but whose actions tell a different story, that person deserves your skepticism regardless of how honeyed their voice. And so we return to where we began, but with deeper understanding. The human soul recognizes, through some ancient and nearly infallible wisdom, that actions are real while words are ephemeral. Words exist in the realm of possibility and intention. Actions exist in the realm of actuality and consequence. This is why the world moves forward not through talk, but through doing. This is why civilizations rise through the labors of those who build, not through the speeches of those who merely describe building. You will encounter throughout your lives many people who talk magnificently. Some will speak of great deeds they will accomplish, of promises they will keep, of transformation they will bring. Some will be sincere in their intention, but weak in their execution. Some will be calculated deceivers who understand the power of eloquence and wield it as a weapon. But none of them, no matter how silver their tongue, can alter the fundamental truth, that in the end, the world is shaped not by words but by actions, and the human mind, in its wisdom, judges primarily by what it sees and experiences rather than by what it hears. This understanding, properly internalized, will transform how you move through the world. You will be less impressed by eloquence and more interested in results. You will be less likely to be deceived by beautiful promises and more focused on demonstrated reliability. You will understand, in your bones, that if you wish to be believed, you must act in ways that justify belief. And you will recognize that the path to genuine power and influence runs not through words, but through consistent action aligned with worthy purposes. The greatest leaders, across all times and all places, have grasped this truth. They have understood that their real authority comes not from the speeches they deliver, but from the tangible improvements they bring to the lives of those they lead. The greatest teachers have known that their words gain power only when tested against reality and found to be true. The greatest lovers have realized that affection is proven not through poetry, but through presence and sacrifice across years. Therefore, as you venture forth into the world, remember this. Words are the currency of the marketplace, quickly spent and easily forgotten. But actions are the currency of the soul, accumulating value across time, creating consequences that echo through eternity. What you do matters infinitely more than what you say. Who you are becomes visible not through your claims, but through your deeds. And the world, in its relentless honesty, will judge you not by the eloquence of your pronouncements, but by the reality of your actions. This is the teaching. This is the truth that wise persons have always understood. And this is the foundation upon which genuine power, authentic influence, and lasting reputation are built.